Hold on, what's this say? Are you saying Kamala Harris was the better option? Yes! What are we fucking talking about? Million fucking times yes! Over and over and over. Yes, yes, yes. Holy fuck. All I heard on the campaign trail was if you vote for Kamala Harris, you're gonna vote for wars. That happened with Donald Trump. If you vote for Kamala Harris, you're voting for higher gas prices. Have you fucking seen them? Well, she's gonna fuck up the healthcare system. What? Health insurance premiums have gone up 26 fucking percent since the beginning of this year. Every fucking thing you all said would happen if we voted for Kamala Harris is happening right the fuck now. Fuck's sake, we cannot keep fucking doing this. It's really getting exposed now. I'm starting to think it was never about the economy. It was never about the affordability crisis. You know what it was about? Trans people and immigrants. Let me tell you how I know, because I live in a small town, and the same people that were bitching about high egg and gas prices under Biden ain't saying shit now. They'll pay higher gas prices at the pump as long as it means that one trans girl from San Jose State can't play volleyball no more. People will pay higher prices at the grocery store as long as it means an immigrant who used the emergency room once gets deported. We're being tricked by a billionaire con man and his fucking buddies into hating our fucking neighbors. And that's the saddest fucking part. Yes, Kamala Harris was the better option.
Kamala wasn't that good either. Between the two, at least she was the better option. At least she was qualified. No, because genuinely, how can you be so ignorant to politics to think that a greedy businessman is better than an actual politician? No, because we have people making excuses out there like, oh, she's a woman, she can't lead. She would have whooped his ass and led a lot better than he is right now. I mean, she literally predicted Trump getting us into a war. Did we forget that? So maybe she wasn't the shiny golden star, but she was the better option against Trump. Don't forget that.
All right, Trumpers, come and get me. Can you imagine what it would have been like to have Kamala Harris as the president right now versus all the chaos that Donald Trump has already got stirred up? Like, it would have been 10-1. There wouldn't have been none of this getting rid of the FBI. There wouldn't have been putting Pete Hegseth over the Department of the Pentagon. There wouldn't have been all this getting rid of FEMA and putting the education back to the states. It would have been a whole lot more peace and calm, and it would have been more unifying. And not only that, really trying to draw unifying with these other countries that we deal with and that we import their goods, because we can't afford to buy American shit, because us Americans, we require too much fucking money. I mean, we've talked about this 100 times now. We can't go out here and buy an American-made damn refrigerator with American workers because the shit would be $20,000. They have to be made and manufactured, and the parts have to be comes from other places to make it affordable over here, because we require so much pay because it costs so much to live in America. So at the end of the day, Kamala and Joe Biden was doing a great job. Kamala would have done probably a better job because she had a great agenda she wanted to put out and get in a line. And look, at the end of the day, the biggest takeaway is we wouldn't have had a criminal in office. We wouldn't have had a sex offender in office. We wouldn't have had somebody that is putting someone else in charge, like Elon Musk doing all these stupid salutes and all this shit. Like, it's just fucking chaos with this guy. So I hope this midday kind of update situation here does you some good, MAGA, to really show you how bad you fucked us.
So hold up, let me get this straight. The woman with the clear economic plan, the one who tried to tell you in a multitude of ways how her administration would benefit you, especially those of us in middle class, the woman who put it all on the line, that's the one that you're upset with because the man in the White House lied to you about what he was actually going to do. Meanwhile, the rest of us told you what would happen. You thought that it wouldn't. And now you're upset because we are all telling you F-A-F-O, that you F-A'd and now you have to F-O. Those of us who voted for Kamala Harris are not upset about what she said. Okay, it is you who either set this one out or you who voted for this monstrosity of an administration that is upset. And here's what, since we're in this car together because you voted to ride in this funky, raggedy ass vehicle, we're going to remind you at every turn that we told you so. We told you the muffler was crap. We told you this thing was not good on gas. We told you that this was going to break down in the middle of the interstate, and now it has. Here we are. Buckle up.
I care way more about the economy than the candidate's personality. That's why I'm voting for Kamala Harris. You remember when Trump said, "I alone can fix it"? Well, he had his chance. And he gave us job losses, a shrinking GDP, and catastrophic deficits. Democrats have added over 50 times more jobs than Republicans since 1990. There's not a single first world nation that has an authoritarian government, the kind of government Donald Trump wants to have. There's not a single first world nation that has a government run like Project 2025 wants to see. Kamala Harris is experienced, and she's a badass. Donald Trump is an orange, washed-up loser. He's a weak example of a man and an even worse example of a president. There's a reason why 100 million Americans are voting for Kamala Harris. It's because Americans want to move forward. Trump had his chance, and he failed miserably.
Actions have consequences, and what we are seeing right now is the consequence of certain actions of the past. And there is a strange silence that is now becoming more like, noise. And that's what we are seeing in America right now. The same voices that were loud, that were very confident, and that were certain are suddenly now, showing uncertainty. They're frustrated, they're confused. And in some cases, they're even coming out to show full regret for their actions, because the reality is hitting hard. And, the reality they're experiencing today looks nothing like the promises that Donald Trump had for them during maybe the campaign period, And suddenly, the name Kamala Harris is being brought back to conversations of people that would not want to even see or hear anything about her. Now, let's continue to watch, and I'll be back with more good commentary.
This man has made America weaker. He has caused us, because he is the first president, Republican or Democrat, since World War II, to not concern himself, much less, he thumbs his nose at the importance of America's alliances, our friendships, and he thumbs his nose at America's responsibility to uphold standards such as sovereignty and territorial integrity. See Ukraine. And so what he has done, not to mention what he has done to cut USAID and what that means for people on the continent of Africa and so many other places around the world. And what he has done has caused us to become more unreliable and to lose our influence, to then be able, imperfect though we certainly are, flawed though we certainly are, to be able to talk about matters of human rights around the world. The lingering impact of so much of what is happening out of this White House is something we are going to have to deal with for a very long time. And that's why I am focused right now, as much as anything, and what gives me hope, Leah, is that we're going to win the midterms.
The right, they spent billions and billions of dollars, okay, on advertising before the 2024 election to convince you of lies. Donald Trump has ushered in a new wave of American politics within the GOP that doesn't hinge on trying to tell Americans the truth or to be transparent, but rather hinges on trying to get what they want from the American people by lying straight to their damn faces. Okay? The right did this before the election with Kamala Harris. They're doing it right now with Zohran Mamdani in New York City. And, we see the GOP doing this with the government shutdown, blaming it on the Democrats, even though the Republicans control the White House, the Supreme Court, both chambers of Congress, the Senate and the House of Representatives. And then they're blaming it on the Democrats with no reason at all and saying that the Democrats are forcing the shutdown so they could give quote-unquote illegal aliens health care, even though the Personal Work Order and Responsibility Act of 1997 strictly prevents any and all federal welfare benefits that are non-emergency from being given to undocumented immigrants on the basis they're not a legal resident nor citizen. And, right, it is this propaganda that you've fallen for in assuming that if Kamala Harris, the lady that ran on tax cuts for the low and the middle class, the lady that ran on more fiscally conservative policy than Trump because Trump's is more expensive, the lady that ran on fairness and equality for all, the lady that ran on increasing the child tax credit that would have reduced childhood poverty by over 40%, the lady that ran on ensuring that regardless if you're gay or straight, you're not going to lose your right to marriage, and if you're a woman, you're going to have access to health care, unlike SCOTUS now apparently challenging gay marriage on November 7th, is somehow worse than the guy parading around as a wannabe dictator, taking health care away from 41 million low-income Americans that are disproportionately Republican, by the way. Sorry, not health care, food stamps. And then taking health care away from 10 million low-income Americans through the Big Beautiful Bill. And I think that you're going to have to come to terms with the fact that you've been propagandized. You're a victim of the machine that has fooled you, and you've been conned by a 34-count felon adjudicated rapist. And this will go down as a stain on American history in the long term, and that you can now reflect on that, come to the right side of history before it's over, so you're not embarrassed to talk about your role in this stain 30 years from now to your grandchildren.
How would Kamala be different than Donald Trump? Well, Alex Preddy would be alive, Renee Good would be alive, Ruben Ray Martinez would be alive, the 50 people who have died in ICE custody would likely be alive. We wouldn't be in a trade war. We wouldn't be losing that trade war. We wouldn't have U.S. businesses and consumers paying 90% of the tariff costs. We wouldn't have farm bankruptcies up 46% in a single year. Inflation would be a lot lower. The federal budget would be far closer to balance. Gas wouldn't be hitting $6 a gallon in parts of the country because we wouldn't be in a shooting war in Iran. Oh yeah, and we wouldn't have 13 Americans dead from that war. We wouldn't be threatening to annex Canada, Greenland, and the Panama Canal. We wouldn't be abandoning Ukraine and shaking down NATO allies. We wouldn't have pardoned 1,500 January 6th defendants, including the people who beat cops with flagpoles. We wouldn't be deporting legal immigrants to an El Salvadorian torture prison without due process. We wouldn't be defying Supreme Court orders. We wouldn't have a sitting president pumping a personal meme coin and accepting a $400 million plane from Qatar. We wouldn't be suing news networks into settlements and threatening broadcast licenses over coverage the president doesn't like. We wouldn't be trying to end birthright citizenship by executive order. So yeah, just a couple differences.
Trump was not the better candidate. That's the problem. Like, Kamala had an economic plan that would have worked. Like, her economic plan would have worked. Tariffs would not have worked. And I can tell you this as someone who studied economics, who studies financial engineering and derivative securities, and who has taken high-level international relations classes and international shipping and freight and all this stuff. Kamala had a comprehensive plan that would have stimulated the economy and helped home ownership. Donald Trump did not. The problem is Kamala could not communicate her plan to the layman. And I would assume you are the average person, right? You do not necessarily understand what goes into making a good economic policy because Donald Trump is really good at making things sound good on paper. But if you know economics, you know it's a failing plan. And everybody knows it's a failing plan who works in economics. So unless you're talking about like social policy, foreign policy, even no, like foreign policy, absolutely not. Like, unless you're talking about domestic policy in terms of like immigration and stuff is as like your defining factor by almost every conceivable metric, Kamala Harris was the better candidate. And you can check the policies. Like, Donald Trump's policy, like economic proposals, didn't make any sense. And so unless you're talking about like social issues, which, okay, I can't quantify, and frankly, like, I'm an economist, not a social issueist. Okay, fine. But that's just categorically false. And I had to say something.
I was told that if I voted for Kamala, I would have higher prices at the grocery store, I would have government-run businesses, and I would have new wars abroad. I voted for Kamala. Turns out that's what I got.
We are dealing with the most corrupt, callous, and incompetent presidential administration in the history of the United States. And so on this of the list of what is empirical evidence of that point, let's talk about this war. He entered a war, got pulled into it by Bibi Netanyahu, let's be clear about that, entered a war that the American people do not want, putting at risk American service members, and among the many consequences of it, it includes jacking up the cost of gas so that on average Americans are paying at least $15 more to fill up their tank. Diesel costs 50% more, so that's what fuels a semi, a truck that otherwise delivers our food and our household items. And where do we think that cost is going to land? It's on the consumer.
Donald Trump should be behind bars. I don't mean impeached. I don't mean kicked out of office. I mean behind literal bars. But this country decided to elect him as our next president. And now everybody's looking around saying, how did we get here? What happened? I can't believe it. He lied to me. He didn't lie to you. You just didn't want to listen. You didn't want to look at what was right in front of your face. We yelled over and over again. He was convicted 34 count felonies and should be behind bars right Now, he could have been impeached and barred from ever running for president again, but spineless bitches like Mitch McConnell decided to let this thing simmer. Then more spineless bitches like Merrick Garland decided to not do anything and sit on their hands. Everything that's going to happen, all the lives that are going to be lost, all of the places that are going to be blown up, the energy crisis we're going to find ourselves in, the food shortages, everything like that could have been and should have been avoidable, because that man, Donald Trump, should have been behind bars. And that's just for the 34 count felonies. Don't even get me started on the files, because this country is an absolute ass backwards run pack of dumbass, knuckle dragging, mouth breathing fucks. To pick Donald Trump as your president again after everything you've seen, don't act like you don't know what happened. Don't act like you don't know how you got here. You are responsible if you voted for Donald Trump, and you will have the blood of Iran and Americans on your hands.
You can't help but think, what if Kamala Harris was president instead of what we have now? I mean, the whole tariff thing, yeah, we wouldn't be taxing people in America billions and billions of dollars. Gas prices wouldn't be soaring like they are. We wouldn't be at war. We would have domestic policies that make sense. Yeah, we didn't get any of that. We got exactly the opposite. So now, almost a year and a half into this horrific presidency, now's the time you look back and go, man, what if? What if we took the bold move and put a female president in? Would we be much better off? And the answer is clearly, we would have been a lot better off. But we are into this second time experiment with a novice politician, and it's been a disaster. And it's only going to get worse.
No one will ever be able to convince me that Kamala Harris was not the better option. She absolutely was the better option. And I guarantee if she was president right now, she would not be doing half of the things that this administration is doing. I guarantee if she was president, she wouldn't be sending the National Guard and the Army to U.S. cities to terrorize U.S. citizens. ICE would not be roaming the streets, literally kidnapping people, terrorizing communities. And it isn't even like the people who are in ICE are trained professionals. I feel like half of them just signed up on a website that this administration created, and they're enacting some Batman vigilante justice idea in their mind that they're saving the day. No, they're thugs. They are thugs that don't know what they're doing. I guarantee if Kamala Harris was president, alligator Alcatraz would not have been a thing. It would not have even existed. So many things would be different. And mind you, we are not even into the first year of this presidency, and it is only going to get worse. And people think that that is an exaggeration. It's not. People think it's an exaggeration because it hasn't probably touched them personally. They haven't seen the effects that this administration has personally, but once it hits them personally, they are going to realize what their vote or non-vote caused. Chaos. Absolute chaos. All I know is I stand by my Kamala vote 100%. 100%. If I could go back in time, I would do the same thing over again, which is vote for her.
Kamala Harris, light years ahead of Donald Trump as it relates to qualifications, as it relates to her overall resume, and as it relates to the fact that she was a lot younger. Everybody said that they wanted to get rid of Joe Biden because he was too old. Then you had a younger, qualified, non-felon candidate, and somehow the people still chose the old white man.
I understand this is very unproductive, but I'm not going to sit up here in front. I cannot forgive people who did not vote for Harris in the presidential election last year. I just can't forgive them. I can't. Like, I remember one time, me and my teammates, we were coming back from this debate tournament, and we went to this Wendy's. And, you know, we're ordering and shit. I got up to order, and the cashier lady, she's like, I have no idea how we even got there. But, I'm explaining to her, yeah, we just came back from debate tournament X, Y, and Z. And she's like, oh, you're in debate. Maybe you could debate Trump for me. And I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, I voted for him, but I really regret that decision. And then she gave me a free drink. Now, okay, great. I'm so happy that you now regret that decision, but bitch, you still voted for him, And the same thing for everyone who now regrets it. I'm kind of like, why couldn't you realize this beforehand? Of course, all of our lives would get substantially worse if he was elected, which we're now seeing in real time, right? And there is the tiniest silver lining I can think of where, people are protesting, people are educating themselves, they're educating other people, they're just becoming more active politically. But to be honest, as great as that is, it doesn't really downplay the bullshit that's happening before our very eyes. And it's really hard to ignore. You can't ignore that. And I think about this every single time I think about politics, which is every single day, about how our lives are getting substantially worse because people couldn't vote for Harris. And I'm not saying that by Harris being president, all of our problems will be gone. Not saying that, never said that. But let's be real. The problems that we were facing before would not be nearly as exacerbated as it is now if Harris was in office. I don't know. I'm pissed off. Every time I think about it, I get so agitated and annoyed. Again, I understand that this is temporary, but I'm kind of just even when Trump leaves office, we're still gonna, it's not gonna be fixed the next day, this entire thing could have been avoided if people would just use their heads. But of course, as Americans, we love to find out the hard way. We literally cannot help ourselves, apparently.
So I just seen a video of Kamala, My Beauty is Black Harris, being asked, will she run for president in 2028? And she talking about I'll think about it. I've been thinking about it. No, don't just think about it. Do it. Please do it. We done fucked around and done found out already. Okay, I ain't gonna say we, because I voted for you. But these other motherfuckers out here, they done fucked around and done found out, and now their asses is in shambles. So guess what? When 2028 come, I wish you can run for 2026. Please, you will get my vote again. Please come and save us. Don't think about it. Do it.
Now, here is where really I find this interesting. During that campaign period, Donald Trump was much more trying to decampaign Kamala Harris more than even trying to, sell his own agenda. One of his biggest agenda was to decampaign the opposition. The campaign was really against Kamala Harris, and it was built on fear, on the fear of economic collapse, on the fear of, global conflict, fear of instability. That is the narrative that was being circulated around MAGA circles and MAGA campaigns. But then, fast forward to today, and look at what Americans are actually dealing with under the stewardship or the leadership of Donald Trump. Prices, they have gone through the roof. Basic living is getting tighter by the day. Groceries, gas, daily survival is becoming a heavier and heavier burden for the common everyday American. And the irony, the exact script used to dismiss and disqualify Kamala is now the one that is being lived, is now the lived experience of many, many, many Americans. And then comes the foreign policy issue. The warnings were loud, that Donald Trump was actually saying that he would drag America into conflicts, into wars. But today, what are we seeing? Tensions are escalating. There is a war in the Middle East. There's been, other quarrels, being led by this administration. Alliances are getting strained. He has been threatening Canada. He's threatened Mexico. He's threatened Spain, Australia, the UK, just about any of America's closest allies. And any day, anytime, threatening your own closest allies, the one that always show up when you need them, when you need your allies to come, it's a bad diplomatic move any day. And many of these decisions, like the war in the Middle East, the war with Iran, are decisions being made that Americans are not happy about. They haven't signed for, and they are not in support of. But people are starting to connect the dots, not emotionally, but more like on a practical scale at this point. You know, they're asking, did we vote based on reality, or it was just the rhetoric, the propaganda, you know? Because when you strip away all that noise, and what is left is a decision made in confidence, like we saw with MAGA and how they were speaking, but you know, is now being questioned in consequence. Yeah. And we have seen a lot of them coming out and clearly saying they regret their votes. And this is where the lesson sits squarely, you know. This is where the lesson of the whole action and the consequences sits. Elections are not just moments. They are mirrors, and they reflect not just leaders, but also the thinking of the people that elect those leaders. People that elected Donald Trump, not all of them, but most of them also just think like him. And that's why it was easy for him to sell the narrative, the kind of narrative, you know, because it's easy to reject someone based on narrative, on stories you're told about them, labels, and even identity. You know, there are people who couldn't look at Kamala and see beyond her gender and her race. But it's harder, but very necessary to evaluate leadership based on substance, based on consistency, based on capability. And what America is experiencing right now feels like missing the sun when we are in the middle of a storm. Not because maybe the sun was so perfect, but because the storm is now real and you really miss that moment you didn't go outside, you know, to enjoy the sunshine. Still, I'd say myself, this is not the end of the road. You know, democracies like America is or supposed to be, they have memory, and more importantly, they have another chance. The real question is not what went wrong. The real question is, will the next decision be driven by clarity or repeated confusion? You know, because history doesn't punish mistakes necessarily. It punishes those that have been repeated over and over. So if America can go ahead and still do this in the coming elections, there will be even harder, more terrible consequences. And this doesn't just stop with Kamala and Donald Trump. For all the leaders that come thereafter, they need to be evaluated, re-examined, and really introspected to make sure someone is fit for office, someone is worth, despite all the other noise, political noise. Is this person fit for office? That's the big question. Now, that was my take on this. Let me know what you think. Leave me your opinion and your thoughts in the comment section below. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. But please subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next video.